can have it all, whatever that means. Usually having it all means you have a great family life and an incredible career. You can do that. In fact, I encourage you to set really big goals as we head into this new year, 2024. I encourage you to set really big goals, dream big, be ambitious, all of that. And if you have a family or you want a family, you can have an amazing family life too. But it won't look like what it looks like for the influencers, for the ice bath people. That was an entire episode last week. The key is you will have to be scrappy. That is the word. I finally nailed the word that encapsulates what it feels like to do this village hustle thing. Essentially, village hustle is kind of the having it all model. You have a support system, you have a community, you're connected to your fellow human beings, but you're also hustling. You're also doing interesting things. The operative word here is scrappy, because you won't be able to keep to your habits perfectly. We've touched on this on the past couple of episodes, and I want to tie it in a bow and bring it all together to give you kind of one thesis, I guess you could say, of what this looks like actually in practice. And if I pass out at any point during this episode, it is just because I'm doing an extreme eating plan. I will lay it out for you guys if it works. I'm not trying to be Mysterio about this. You know how some people are like, I'm doing an eating plan, but it's like, it's private. This is just something for me. I'm always like, I will show up at your house with a knife if you do not tell me. If it works, you better spill. You better tell me what you did that works. That's good. I just ensured that this episode will get no views in the YouTube algorithm. Listen, YouTube algorithm, I'm not actually, it's a fake knife. It's with a butter knife to help the person cook. That's what I meant. That wasn't a threat of violence. You don't need to suspend my channel. So I'll tell you guys exactly what I'm doing if it works. But we're only 4 days in, so we're at that point where I have absolutely no reason to live. It's just awful. But it is, I don't have food cravings or anything, so I'm able to eat this little peasant diet that I'm on. And so yeah, I'll tell you guys all the details if it works. But I've been around this block enough times to know it might not work, and I don't want to yank you guys around if it doesn't. And see, as we talked about in one of the previous episodes in the past couple of months, I wouldn't see that as a failure. I would not get discouraged. I would see that as an iteration. I'm trying a new spin on a diet I've done in the past, and it's an iteration. And the whole concept of iteration is that you try things, they fail, you improve them, you go back to the drawing board. So if this does fail, which it very well might, I will simply see it as an iteration, and I'll go back to the drawing board and try to get it done another way. So anyway, again, if at any point during this podcast I just go silent and I just stare into space, I just do that 1,000-mile stare, and I start muttering about Pims and lemonade, Pims and Squirt, my drink, when I'm like an alcoholic and broke, that's, when the nice lemonade that I like is too out of the budget. That's when you're a half step away from homelessness, when you start drinking Pims and Squirt. And I start muttering about like double fudge brownies and things like that. That is just the diet. Don't worry about it. And Caitlin can just play the exit music, and then we'll fade out. Yeah, and we're out. This was an 11-minute episode because Jen is on one of her insane diets. I will say I did finally get off the bender that I had been on since Thanksgiving. It was getting to the point that I thought this might just be a lifestyle. This is just becoming a lifestyle, and my shot at the Comedy Millions, maybe my big break will come when I get cast for my 600-pound life. I'll get discovered by Netflix on that show, and that's how kind of things will come together for me. But to my surprise, almost more than anyone's, at least for the past few days, I have been back on my trillionaire grind set. I'm no longer acting like a morbidly obese homeless person, which was exactly how I was acting. And I did finally weigh myself. You know how when you're on a bender, you're like,
Don't even bother.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. So the numbers are in, and I gained 10, 11, 12 pounds, depending on how you count. Let's say 10 pounds. Nice round number. That makes me think I have a tapeworm, because I should have gained more than that based on my eating. I guess it was that intermittent fasting works so well for me. It just makes me feel better. So even when I'm on a bender, I do kind of do intermittent fasting principles. Let me just tell you, I kid you not. If intermittent fasting weren't just like a natural thing that I do without thinking about it now, I'm not kidding you. I honestly think I would have gained like 20 pounds, at least, maybe more. It was kind of crazy, my habits over the past couple of months. All this is to say, go read Jen Stevens' book, Delay, Don't Deny. I don't know why you guys haven't read it. It's incredible. And it is that book and those principles are the only thing that stood between me and doubling my weight gain during my bender. So there you go. That was said. We're also going to talk about Joe Coy this past weekend. He hosted I guess it was the Golden Globes. It's funny. I'm so out of touch with celebrity culture
remember.
that I'm like, it was one of the shows where they get statues and they dress up. It was Golden Globes, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So Joe Coy hosted the Golden Globes, and other people's words, not mine. He bombed. And we will talk about that. Obviously, the subject of stand-up comedians and how they're doing and bombing, very near and dear to my heart. But there's a big principle here that is exactly what I was just talking about on Patreon that I want to share with the regular podcast here that I think you will really like. And again, the main topic, which we always get to in the second half of the show, is how you can really fully live that Village Hustle lifestyle by being scrappy about your goals. And a good friend of mine was talking about what her goals are for the new year. So I'm going to play that clip and just talk about like the slight changes that I would make to make sure that she nails it. Just add a couple things to it. So that is what is going on in this episode. Welcome to the Jen Fulwiler Show. I am your host, Jen. I am a mom of 6, best-selling author, and stand-up comic. This is the podcast where you learn the art of the village hustle. That's being a hot girl boss who knows that love and family and community are the foundations for all true success. We publish new episodes every single Wednesday, except for 2 Wednesdays ago that due to said bender that I just read, I needed some space. I needed to like meditate and pray on a mountaintop. But when I'm not in a downward spiral, we publish new episodes every Wednesday, and we are coming to you from Austin, Texas. I was thinking that the mission of this podcast, I think, is to break you out of your self-doubt and your anxiety and break you in to your villain era.
Oof.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I would high five Caitlin if I could reach her. My arms are long, but
Air
not
5.
that long. Yes. Air five. Yes. This podcast, I want to break you out of all of that, just feeling bad about yourself and your life, and break you into your villain era. So that's a new little motto for the podcast for 2024. Don't forget that we do bonus content on Patreon. We do bonus content, and I'm still thinking about what I'm going to do for the after party. That's one of the things we do on Patreon is we just keep the cameras rolling, and I keep talking about this subject that this episode was about, or a related subject, or sometimes just things that I want to share with you guys, but for legal reasons, I can't say on the main podcast. And then we also have a second level of Patreon where you get my Village Hustle tips. And that is where I am just your straight up life coach. It's like down to business. I'm not joking around. Seriously, step by step, ABC. Here's how you win. Here's how you do it. There is a side of me. Like my life could have gone 2 directions: stand-up comic or life coach. And the Village Hustle Patreon is where I kind of live out that second side of myself, the life coach. And I was thinking, I think the reason I ended up in the right direction here is I'm too honest, because life coaches need to maintain a certain image. And I'm not even critical of this, because that is what they stand for to people, the Tony Robbins types. I would say they actually have a duty to the people who are their clients and who follow them to maintain a strong image of kind of having it together. And some people would say that they're being inauthentic or they're lying or whatever. I actually don't see it that way. Anyone who has any kind of public presence, I mean, even like if you're a cashier at Chick-fil-A, if you have any public facing presence, you don't normally show up with your whole mess. There's a side of yourself that you have a social obligation to show. And so it would be unbecoming for a life coach to be like, I got so wasted on Pims and Squirt last night. And the reason it was Pims and Squirt is because I'm broke again, because I just totally messed up this business deal, because I have a lot of anxiety about calling meetings that I should have called 2 months ago. And, it's like you can't, nobody wants it, even though it's fine and true if life coaches have that kind of thing going on behind the scenes because they're only human. They can't say that publicly. And I can't keep my mouth shut. So that is why I'm in the right field. It's very on brand for me. It's exactly what people pay for me, is to hear that I'm a disaster. So, but all this is to say, the Village Hustle Patreon is where I'm like, that's my life coach side, where I'm very serious on the Village Hustle Patreon. The one that we just did, I broke down leadership into the 4 elements of leadership as I define it, and how focusing on these 4 elements will actually make you the best version of yourself, even if you're single, even if you don't have a family to be a leader in. It'll make you the best version of yourself. The Village Hustle Patreon is also where you see why a lot of people who know me well think I'm on the spectrum. Actually, that's this podcast too, but in a different way. That I'm so analytical, and I'm just like, here is the data on what will make you hotter and make your life more fun and better. That's the Village Hustle Patreon. Patreon.com/thisisjen. All right. So all that is to say, go join the Patreon as well. And let us begin. Joe Coy, so he was dating Chelsea Handler for a while. He is a stand-up comic, highly respected. I think multiple Netflix specials, at least one, many big specials. I'll full disclosure, I'm not that familiar with his comedy, but people I know who know him have nothing but nice things to say about him. I feel like I have a positive impression of him. What's great about the comedy industry is everyone talks. So I mean, you only need to be in the comedy industry for a little bit, and you hear who's like what. That would be funny if I went on Patreon and just named names. I was like, oh, you know who everyone says is horrible.
Let me tell you.
So Joe Coy, I've heard nothing but good things about him. He seems like a nice person. I don't know. So he was tapped to host the Golden Globes because I was busy. I was telling them, I was like, listen, I got 2 comments on my last YouTube video, and I just feel like I need to spend some time, dealing with that enormous response. That's like, 200% the response I normally get. And obviously things are kind of blowing up for me. And I just don't know if the Golden Globes are going to fit into my schedule right now. So that's how Joe Coy actually ended up. So that's kind of cool for him. I was happy that he was able to do that for me. And everyone on social media is saying that Joe Coy bombed. Now, I don't want to say that he bombed because that would be bad karma. And I am Catholic, so I don't believe in karma, but I kind of do. You know how that works? It's like, I don't believe in it, but I kind of follow
just in case, like
what?
Just in case,
just in case. It's just that, this, okay. I don't believe in karma, but I have a lot of Irish heritage, so I am genetically engineered to be very superstitious. So the concept of karma really, like that hits for me. That really resonates. So I would never render an opinion that someone else, quote unquote, bombed. That's what people are saying. People are saying. I mean, definitely the audience reacted with open distaste to most of his sets. So, and we've all been there, by the way. I want to say that too. Good Lord. Like, I mean, that is like when you do bar shows like I do, look, it's part of the grind, it's fine. So for those of you who didn't see it, let's play the clip. This is a clip of the moment that Joe himself started kind of melting down, if we're being honest. Let's play this clip.
The key moment in Barbie is when she goes from perfect beauty to bad breath, cellulite, and flat feet. Or what casting directors call character actor. Some I wrote, some other people wrote. Robert De Niro's here. Yo, I got the gig 10 days ago. You want a perfect monologue? Yo, shut up. You're kidding me, right? Slow down. I wrote some of these, and they're the ones you're laughing at. Look. The key moment in...
Look. May I speak theoretically for a minute?
Oh, sure.
Theoretically, if someone were to be in the stand-up comedy field, working in that profession, and just a petty person who has so far to go mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, the kind of person who might have even recently been reading some kind of self-help book and been like, I'm too crazy for this. Like, I'm too crazy for all of this advice. They could react to that and be like, man, there's honestly nothing better than watching another comedian meltdown. I mean, it's like Christmas. It's you know what? My birthday is this week. Oh wait, no, we're not talking about me. We're not. This isn't about me. Because I was just like, I feel bad for him that seemed to be a stressful event. But I have a comedian friend. Her name is Shmen. And Shmen Schmolweiler, and she was just like, I've watched that 50 times. It's just so amazing to me because I want to be clear what she said. It's actually not. She has no issue with Joe Coy and would not want to see him or any individual like have a bad night. It is reassuring to be like, okay, I'm not the only one who sometimes feels very stressed out and feels like something that I hoped would go really well is in fact a total dumpster fire. And actually, I think I can actually defend this. When you maybe not me, I wouldn't do this, but you guys need some work. So when you see someone in your field who something doesn't go well for them and you watch that video 50 times, like in one night, and like you're not even done. I mean, this is like what you do now in the evening. I will defend it in the sense that I think maybe it's a bad thing if you personally hate that person and are like rooting for their downfall. And my friend Shmen Schmolweiler does that actually also, just not in this case with Joe Coy. But like if you're personally rooting for someone's downfall, that's not cool. You don't want to do that. But if it's just I think sometimes we watch things like that actually from a bonding perspective, from a relatability perspective. Like, man, I'd love to have a beer with that guy. Or for me, with this diet I'm doing, I would love to have a glass of room temperature tap water with that guy and talk about just what that was like and commiserate with him and give him a hug and just be like, we've all been there. I mean, not at like the Golden Globes in front of Robert De Niro, Harrison Ford, Taylor Swift, but we've all, I was at a bar show 2 nights ago. It didn't always go well. So, I actually do think that sometimes when you see someone have a misstep, it's not always that you're the worst person in the world if you enjoy watching it. I think sometimes you actually feel a bond with them. You feel camaraderie. You feel like that's what it's like to be in this game. And in fact, I would say that's one of the fun things about going for your goals is that you will fail. You will fall on your face. You will be embarrassed and people will make fun of you and you will be tempted to just descend into an alcoholic haze. It will be very tough. But when you pull through it and you overcome that, it's like, yeah, I kind of feel like I'm in the same battle as all these other people in this field. And we have that camaraderie. We have that camaraderie that you can only find among people who are taking the same hits and fighting the same battle. And that's pretty cool. That is a great feeling. And for those of us who didn't grow up with much community or support system or feel kind of isolated, let me tell you, that's a shortcut to a village. get in the same battle with a group of people, and it's cool and it's fun, and it will give you guys actually a great bond. So Fulwiler, watch that clip 50 times with the delight of camaraderie. Like, man, we've all been there, and can I just like give you a hug and we can talk through this, because we all know how this feels. Maybe not at that level. But I was also thinking when Joe Coy was getting a bad reaction to this Golden Globe set, wouldn't it have been funny if he went into crowd work? That's normally what you do as a comedian. You start talking to the audience if your set isn't going well. How funny would that have been if he'd been like, so what do you do? And he's talking to Robert De Niro. He goes to the next person. Hey, are you single? Are you dating anyone? It's Taylor Swift. I think I would have done that. I think I would have scrapped all of my prepared material and gone into crowd work and acted like I didn't know these people. Like if Taylor Swift said she's dating someone, like, really, who? What does he do? What does he do for a living? So that would have been amazing. Crowd work at the Golden Globes. So the Golden Globes can call me for next year. I promise you a crowd work set. What's great, I'm so detached from celebrity culture and bad with faces. That could actually be really funny. I would like genuinely not know who some of these people are. I'd confuse, I'd confuse two different people. It would be amazing. It would be really fun. But here's actually the main point. Play the clip again, Caitlin. Not because I take any pleasure out of seeing it, but there's something that Joe Coy says that I think is actually causing the biggest amount of backlash. Hang on, Caitlin, before you play it. Even if you've never done anything near his field, certainly we have all felt embarrassed, or like people were looking at us and judging us, and that's a bad feeling. There is a way that he reacts here that I think is causing most of the bad feedback he got, and he got a lot of bad feedback. I was looking at X, RIP Twitter.
I know, right?
And, stop, Elon, cut it out.
Come on now.
Come on. I was looking at, we're going to call it Twitter on this show. I was looking at Twitter. I mean, it was bad. And then I looked at his Instagram comments, because for my friend Shmen, like Lord knows I wouldn't have spent a whole evening on this. Then I looked at his Instagram comments. It's terrible. He may have deleted them by the time this episode comes out, but I mean, it's pretty bad. And I think his set actually didn't go that badly, and I think that nobody would have really commented on it or noticed it to a large degree. There are always going to be some haters, a little bit of chatter on Twitter, but I think he made one key mistake that has caused all of this backlash, and it actually kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy with people hating on him. And it's a mistake that any of us can make, even if you are not hosting the Golden Globes. But shout out to my Golden Globes hosting demographic. That it's a very growing demographic on this show. Welcome. Even if you are not hosting the Golden Globes, this absolutely applies to your life. So let's listen to it one more time.
The key moment in Barbie is when she goes from perfect beauty to bad breath, cellulite, and flat feet. Or what casting directors call character actor. Some I wrote, some other people wrote. Robert De Niro's here. Yo, I got the gig 10 days ago. You want a perfect monologue? Yo, shut up. You're kidding me, right? Slow down. I wrote some of these, and they're the ones you're laughing at. Look, the key moment in...
All right. And by the way, you'll really get the full experience by watching this on YouTube. It's jfonyoutube.com is where you can see that clip. This is episode, what episode? This is episode 189. So if you're hearing this later, look up episode 189, jfonyoutube.com, and you can see that clip. And the laughter actually sounds okay if you're only listening on audio, which is 99% of you guys. The laughter sounds okay, but when you see the faces on this YouTube. We play the video on YouTube. It's not ideal. It's not what you want. Not what you want as a performer. People on X were posting clips of the celebrity reactions, and it was like they were like looking away, rolling their eyes. It was bad. So I think that actually nobody would have really commented on it if he hadn't passed the buck on responsibility. I think that is what led to all of this backlash and all of this hate that he's getting. And he is just getting straight up hate, especially from the Swifties. He made a joke about Taylor Swift that it was just something about, the only joke I heard, he might have made more, but the only joke I heard was that something about the NFL shows her on screen more than the Golden Globes. I didn't think that was a bad joke at all, but Swifties are up in arms about it, which is so funny. That's the fan base that I aspire to have. Could you all step it up a little bit? Someone makes the most like innocuous joke, and could you guys please go leave 5,000 comments, on their Instagram, like, how dare you say one word against Jen? That's an incredible
Get
fan
her
base.
name out of your mouth.
Yeah. So he's getting an extraordinary amount of criticism and hate, which is causing this situation to snowball. And what we can learn here applies to you, even if it's like you had a falling out with your mother-in-law. These are same principles. If you are in any situation where you did something, you created something, you put something out there, and it wasn't well received, and maybe while you're putting it out there, you are realizing in the moment that it's not being well received. Wonderful. My mic stand is falling down. What? Oh my gosh. Okay. Great. These principles apply to all of us. We all face moments like this. And I think the biggest thing that caused all of this backlash for Joe Coy is that he passed the buck. He did not take responsibility for what was going wrong. And look, when you're the person putting this out there, whether it's, your mother-in-law made a bad comment about your Christmas decorations, or your Joe Coy hosting the Golden Globes. If you are the public-facing face of this product that you're putting out there, you are a leader whether you want to be or not. You just are. It's just a fact. And what people expect from all types of leaders in all types of situations, work situations, public system situations, and domestic situations, what people want and expect from leaders is that they own it. They own it. They don't pass the buck when things go wrong. And a lot of people pointed out that, we've just come off of the writer's strike in Hollywood. We've just come, that was a difficult thing for writers in Hollywood. And you heard what Joe Coy said at the end there. He said that the jokes that people were laughing at were the ones that he wrote. And the jokes that people didn't laugh at are the ones his writers wrote. That is bad leadership 101. Because you're the one performing them. That was on you. Don't deliver the jokes if they aren't good. It's your mouth. It's your mouth. You have to own your mouth. Somebody make that into a card for Pinterest.
Please.
Put my name on it, like a quote card.
You have to own your mouth.
You own your mouth. It's like no one made him say those jokes. If he didn't think they were good, don't say them. And then he said he only got the gig on 10 days notice. I think that was actually smart to say that to help people understand. But he said it in a victim way. The leader move would have been to maybe work that into a joke at the beginning of the set. Like say like the Golden Globes is so broke that they're finding, they wouldn't like that joke, but whatever. Make some sort of joke about why it is that you got this gig on 10 days notice so that it's out there. People are aware that you're kind of climbing an uphill battle here, but you didn't say it in a victim way, like it's your fault. So if he had started with that joke and never commented on how bad the celebrity audience was reacting to him, I actually think this would have blown over very quickly. It would have been 5 minutes of a few shut-ins making rude comments on Twitter, and it would have been over. The reason people are piling on is because he blamed whatever mysterious powers that be gave him 10 days notice, and he blamed the writers. And that's just a human nature thing, that when you see someone who is in any kind of quote unquote leadership position, again, defining this very broadly, it is very distasteful to us when they don't act like leaders. You know, imagine if your kid's school was a mess and the principal was constantly pointing fingers at, well, it's the PTA's fault, it's the teacher's fault, it's the janitor's fault. It's like, well, who's in charge here if not you? Who would take ownership for this if not you? Mm-hmm. And we have a very strong, distasteful reaction to that. And I think this also causes a lot of household tension. I have a lot of listeners who are parents, and I think that one of the hidden reasons for a lot of household tension is that parents aren't acting like leaders. As moms, I was actually just talking about this exact point on the Village Hustle Patreon. I really appreciate Joe Coy having this bad night at the Golden Globes to bolster what I was saying. This episode just came out this Monday, on the Village Hustle Patreon. That's where I was breaking down the 4 elements of leadership and how being a better leader in your life, whether you have a family or not, whether you have a business or not, solves like 90% of your problems instantly. And one of the examples that I gave on Patreon is that you, like, let's say you're a mom and you get frustrated because people in your house aren't doing housework. So how do you deal with that? If you're not in leader mentality, if you haven't been reading up on and studying and fostering a sense of leadership in your life, well, then you'll go into martyr mode. And that's what Joe Coy did at the Golden Globes. He went into martyr mode. And as moms, we do that all the time. It's like, nobody ever helps me around you. I'm the only one who ever does blah, blah, blah. Nobody helps me.
Guilty.
Well, yeah, we all do it. We all do it. But think about the culture that you are fostering. Are you taking accountability? No. It's kind of ironic that when we do that, we are not taking accountability while we are complaining about other people not taking accountability. What kind of culture are you setting there when you are sitting there taking no responsibility for what has happened while you're pointing the finger at other people for not taking responsibility? Whereas I'm telling you, you know what? All moms need to listen to that Navy SEAL book, Extreme Ownership. It's a guy who talks like this. His name is like Jocko Braun or something. Jocko Willinger. Jocko. Let's just call him Jocko. And of course his name is Jocko because he talks like this. And he's a really tough guy. The Extreme Ownership book is a guy talking like this the whole time and telling you that everything is your fault and you have to fix it now. Moms need this book more than anyone so that we can stop being martyrs. You need to go Navy SEAL on your household. You need to go Extreme Ownership on your household. You need to go into Jocko mode and be like, I have not created a proper incentive system for these kids to do their chores, and I take responsibility for that. I'm telling you, moms need these hardcore leadership books more than anyone, because we don't associate domestic duties with leadership. But honestly, I would say there's actually there's no more important place to be a leader than in your home. And so again, when you are walking around like a victim and a martyr, you are not setting an example to your kids to take responsibility and own your space and own your chores and take pride in getting it done despite a lot of obstacles. You're setting a horrible example. And so to take it back to Joe Coy, on a fundamental level, I believe on a caveman, million-year-old human evolutionary theory level, your amygdala is like freaking out. And it's been too long since we referenced the amygdala on this podcast. The amygdala part of your brain is like so annoyed when you see someone being a bad leader, because you have this sense that like this is not how this person should be acting, and it's very destabilizing. I've used the example before of a pilot on an airplane. That's the other example. That's kind of the ultimate example of leadership. Let's pretend that you're on a flight. There's some turbulence. Little scary, but you got your pilots up front. Let's pretend that they accidentally turned on the mic. And so you can hear the private conversations in the cockpit. And you hear the captain of your plane, the pilot, is in there like, I just don't, air traffic control never listens to me. And like, there's all this turbulence and I just feel like they don't listen. And like, I just can't, I tried to talk to my boss about getting some better equipment so that we could navigate this turbulence better. And he doesn't listen to me. Nobody ever listens to me. I'm the only one who ever does anything in this plane. You would be making your final amends. You would be signing up for plane Wi-Fi so that you could text your family a farewell and make your burial wishes known. I'd like for you to collect the 800 pieces that my body is about to be smashed into and put them in a little box, like one of my Amazon boxes, and bury it. That's, if you hear your freaking pilot talking like that, and that I use that extreme example, but it actually applies to any area where someone is being a leader. When you piece out, like, what is the reaction that you're having there? Your reaction is, one, the leader passing the buck and being a martyr it's a destabilizing force in this environment. So for you in this situation, it's the plane. So for everyone on this plane, this leader being a martyr is having a destabilizing effect because this person is in charge, but they're not acting like they are in charge. So that causes your cortisol level to go way up because you're like, I'm in a situation where someone has been given a leadership position and they ain't being a leader. And I'm super stressed about this now. And then the second thing is that leadership is a privilege. Leadership is always a privilege. If you're in any kind of leadership situation, whether it's hosting the Golden Globes or being a mom, that's a privilege that, frankly, a lot of people would like to have. It's always a blessing. If you're running a company, if you're the principal of a school, a teacher in a classroom full of kids, it's a blessing. That's really cool. That's a feather in your cap. Someone trusted you, whether it was a boss or just God, to give you these people to be responsible for. And so when you see leaders whining and blaming other people and passing the buck, there's also a feeling of resentment that rises within you. It's like, what? This is a cool thing that you're doing. A lot of people would like to be in this position. And you're just like sitting here pointing the finger and blaming other people and whining about it. So those are the two deep interior reactions I think we have when we see someone in a cool leadership position whining, being a martyr, and passing the buck. And it fosters a very negative reaction to them. And what you see happening with Joe Coy, I think is actually a macro level of what we see happening in our own homes when we as moms are effectively doing what Joe Coy did when he's like, the jokes that you're laughing at are the ones I wrote, and the ones that are bombing, those are the ones those other guys, the writers wrote. He is getting such a bad reaction to that statement. And then he turned on the audience. When he told the audience, he's like, shut up, speaking to their interior thoughts of what they might be thinking about him. He turns on the audience. So he's being hostile to them, saying, shut up. And then saying, this isn't even my fault because what I did was good. And these other writers, what they did was bad. So that is on the macro level, what we do on the micro level in our homes, right? Aren't we saying that? Like, well, when I clean the house, it's good, but nobody else ever, like when they do it, like you guys do a half-hearted job. Like you don't even clean the house. I'm the only one, like when I cleaned the sink, it was good, but when those other people cleaned the sink, it was bad. And then this isn't even my fault. Like I didn't have enough time to get these chores together. We are being Joe Coy. And it creates all of this tension and resentment and hostility in our houses. So how could he have handled the Golden Globes? And I want to be clear to the cosmic forces that handle these things that I am not saying that I would have done a better job. I can't make that clear enough. If God listens to this podcast, if whoever controls karma, which, I don't believe in, but I want to be very clear. In no way am I saying that I would have actually handled this way if I were in Joe Coy's shoes. No. I'm sure that I would have done a much worse job, and I do not need any lessons. I don't need to get a last minute call to host the Academy Awards and then I have a complete meltdown. And I don't need that lesson. I'm just telling the cosmic forces that I am absolutely Monday morning quarterbacking this. And I am being an armchair coach here. I was not in his position. Certainly what I would have actually done is worse. So we are talking purely ivory tower theory here. Ivory tower theory is that a way that Joe Coy could have handled it that I think would have led to a much better response is blame only himself. Great leaders blame only themselves. Let me say that in Jocko voice. Great leaders blame only themselves. You guys need to listen to that. It's so, and just think about how it applies to moms. It really does. They didn't realize it, but Extreme Ownership is a book for moms. Great leaders blame only themselves. So I would blame myself. Theoretically, not what I actually would have done, but if I had a perfect response to it, I would have blamed myself. And I would have just made a joke of it and reacted with a smile, just kind of this attitude of like, okay, I'm the worst. Like, all right. This is fun to have a bunch of hot, successful people not laugh at my jokes. This is incredible. But I would have blamed myself. And even interiorly, in a perfect world, I would have been thinking like, you know what? This is on me for taking this gig on 10 days notice. As a leader of my own career and in this space, I should have given some requirements to like the writers or whatever, or I don't know, this is on me. I didn't have to accept this gig. I did accept it on 10 days notice. I knew what the risks were. I could have insisted on bringing in a team of writers that was of my choosing or whatever, but I didn't. And so this is fully on me. I don't blame the powers that be that gave me short notice. I don't blame my writers. I will stand on this stage and just completely own this and just make fun of myself and just laugh. Because everyone likes that. That is always endearing when you can approach a problem with lightheartedness, especially lightheartedness as it relates to your image and your ego and yourself. So reacting that way, taking full responsibility and not turning on the people who are not reacting well. So to take it back to mom world, or again, this applies to workplace, just other dealings with your family. To take it back to that sort of world, as a mom, you don't turn on your kids for not reacting well to whatever system you're trying to implement, chores or whatever. Has that ever gotten you anywhere? Let's think. Caitlin has 4 children. I have 6 children. How old is your oldest? Remind me.
12.
12.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, together we have almost like 30 years of collective parenting knowledge. Has it ever worked to passive aggressively be angry and just kind of vent at our kids and kind of turn on them like Joe Coy did with the Academy Awards? Like, has it ever yielded a good result?
Not at all.
Yeah. Has
Not
it
once.
ever been like, oh my gosh, Caitlin, you know what? Our chore system is incredible. My house is spotless. The kids sing their favorite show tunes as they dance and give each other high fives as they sweep. And you know what did it? You know what did it is when I blamed them And I said that nobody ever helps me around here. And this is why we can't have nice things. And we live in a pigsty because all of you lazy people don't care that I'm the one doing all the work. You know, that really turned things around. And now we have this incredible culture in our family where everyone takes responsibility and just keeps the house in tip-top shape with a smile all the time. What would that ever happen?
No.
If you had 1,000,000 years to parent, would that scenario ever play out?
Never.
Never.
Not once.
Never. And so watch the Joe Coy on stage video, not for the reasons I did, but watch it and see if you don't see a little bit of yourself in him. I think you will, because we've all been there. We've all been that person passing the buck, not taking extreme ownership, and just being a martyr when things go wrong. And as you watch that video, think about what he could have done to get the audience on his side. What could he have done to make that audience like him? Even if he couldn't get the laughs, because, I mean, sometimes it might be true that some of the jokes weren't well written. I didn't watch the whole set. I don't know. But maybe they weren't going to laugh because some of the jokes were just not strong. That's fine. But there are ways, ask me how I know, when your jokes are not resonating at all, but you can get the audience to like you. Mm-hmm. They might not be slapping their knees with laughter, but they feel really good about your performance and about you. Think about what Joe Coy could have done to achieve that result with the audience. Now apply it to yourself. What could you do in your relationships with the people in your workplace or in your home that could make you get a better response when you are not getting the reaction you want and things are not going your way? And again, if you like this subject, this is exactly what I talked about on Monday's Village Hustle Patreon. I went into great detail about this, even more detail than I just did. I broke it down into, these are the 4 elements of leadership as I see them. I didn't get this from Jocko. I didn't get this from John Maxwell, the big leadership guy. I didn't get it from Tony Robbins. These are my 4 elements of leadership, kind of the hallmarks of a great leader, and why even if you're single and you have no job, you're a single heiress, you don't need money, you don't need anything, you don't have a family. Still, if you can foster these 4 elements of leadership in your life, I swear it will solve all your problems. That's a big promise, but it will. So that is on the Village Hustle Patreon. The link is in the show notes. Patreon.com/thisisjen is where you basically get me as your life coach. Let me tell you this. Most of the Village Hustle episodes I do, if I charged hundreds of dollars for them, it's like $200 to get this episode, my conscience would be completely clear. I'd be like, that they will save or make back that amount of money from this hard-won advice that I got from falling on my face for multiple decades. Like they will get this money back. If I charge hundreds for it, which I don't, because all I do on this podcast is leave money on the table. If I charge hundreds of dollars for it, honestly, it would be worth it. Patreon.com/thisisjen. And it's not hundreds of dollars. So, all right, let's get to what else? Was there anything else I was supposed to say on that? No, that's my intro. Oh! I knew I forgot something at the beginning. Podcast reviews. This is because my body is currently screaming at me to have a brownie. And I won't do it because I'm back on my trillionaire grind set. Listen, if this diet, if I end up sticking with it and it works, that's going to be an explosive episode. I'll get 200 views on that YouTube. It'll be explosive if this works, but we'll see. I might need to iterate a few more times. Let me read a couple of podcast reviews. Your Apple Podcast reviews are the very air that I breathe. There are many Mondays where it's really, I don't want to say all I have to live for, but okay. So I'm just going to read a few quickly. So this is, who wrote this? Loving Dates. She says, sitting down for a coffee date, lunch, on a drive, or in the grocery store aisle is so real, yet She's in my headphones on these occasions, so the people stare when I double over laughing or am violently nodding in agreement that they're missing out. Thank you, Jen, for your show. I look forward to not missing your next show. She's so sweet. Okay, this one is in the last episode, I was talking about dry January. That's episode 188.
188.
So in episode 188, I was talking about dry January, or any time you want to commit to a period of sobriety. Major life hack there about how to just feel social and just ready to have a good time without alcohol. So this is what Veronica here is referencing. She says, "Oh my gosh, you stole my hack. Every time I'm out with hot girl bosses, AKA my friends, and they want to do shots, I always fake my shots with water instead of tequila. I've been doing this for years. Now I know that you are the real deal. Not only do we have similar parenting styles, now we have similar partying styles. Keep the laughs and insights coming." I love that. And again, even if the people you are partying with know that you are not drinking alcohol, simply going through similar motions with similar glasses, you would be shocked at the psychological impact that it has. Like if everyone's doing shots, if you say, you know what, give me a shot glass, I'll fill mine up with water, but yeah, I'll do a shot with you. You would be surprised how much that ameliorates the feeling that you're not participating in the fun. It's kind of shocking, honestly. So thank you very much. I also like it that she says, every time I'm out with hot girl bosses, AKA my friends, that's how I see everyone I know too. They're all hot girl bosses. Okay, so you guys know I do a word of the year generator. She says, Ellen Rossini says, "Soak was my word of the year. I have 2 questions. Did you add this to the word bank only after purchasing the inflatable hot tub?" Great question. "Is this in fact an invitation for me to come over, possibly several nights in a row? And what time shall I be there? Thank you for this very inspirational word that confirms that 2024 is not the year of the ice bath for this chick." Yes, Ellen, come on over anytime. My inflatable hot tub is your inflatable hot tub. Before we get to the main topic, I will say, people sometimes say to me, they say, when they meet me in person, they say, "Jen, this might sound weird, but I feel like we would be friends." I want you to know that I always believe that when someone tells me that, because one thing about having a type of public presence, whatever you want to call this, that I do, is boy, am I keenly aware that I am not everyone's cup of tea. I see comments literally every day about how much people, they don't like me, they think I'm bad at this or that, or I'm stupid, or I say bad things, or whatever. So if someone says, "Hey, I track with your crazy brain, and the topics you talk about resonate with me, I think we would be friends," I always think I do too, honestly. If we live next door to each other, we would definitely hang out, because if what I'm saying here resonates with you, then yeah, I think that we would also be friends. All right, so let's talk about let's take our village hustle to the next level. How do we be hot girl bosses, or hot boy bosses? The tagline of the show, who know that love and family and community are the foundation of all real success. How do we nail this? How do we take it to the next level? Here's what occasioned this. My good friend Lindsay, who runs the Created Colorful business, she's the one who tells you what colors are your colors. This shirt that I'm wearing, sponsored by, not really, but it's inspired by Lindsay. She was on Instagram stories talking about her goals for 2024. I love it when people share things like this. Lindsay is the ultimate hot girl boss. Her Created Colorful business is booming. She is building a small empire here. It's insane. I've met with her personally when I go to New York. She and I hang out. We talk on the phone. I mean, we're good buds. And if you're going to take advice from anyone, make it be her. I mean, she is incredible. I really appreciate that she brought us into her thinking on these subjects. And so that is what I was keying off of. And I want to play this video for you because she is more on her grind than probably anyone I know. So her thinking about goals it's so smart and it's so good. And I want to build on that. I want to use it as a jumping off point to talk about the village hustle principles of goal setting. And this combines the things I've been talking about in the last couple of podcast episodes and kind of puts a bow on them. So Caitlin, will you play the Created Colorful clip of Lindsay talking about her goals?
Something that I didn't do in 2023 was have like a big picture, like plan for the year, or like pull out a calendar and like mark things down. And it didn't work out too well for me. So today, with the goal in mind to really prioritize connecting with my family and having some downtime and creative energy time worked into my schedule, we are sitting down before I do my work calendar and mapping out the big things we want to do as a family, like trips we want to take, people we want to prioritize being around with, and thinking through our kind of monthly structure and rhythm of life and figuring out which things we definitely want to happen. Maybe everybody does this except for me.
Okay,
but
pause
marking
it
it all down. And even Josh and I,
those of you watching on YouTube will see that I use that. Normally I don't let clips go that long, but I needed to see if my bangs looked okay. So Caitlin and I were mouthing like, do I need to, like what? I'm having bang issues today, guys. So, okay. So we will continue playing this in a second. But first of all, that's why Lindsay is so successful, because she thinks about these things. Let's get a vision. Let's make more of a solid plan for the kinds of things that we want to bring into our lives in the new year. And I also want to say, if you have not done this, it is not too late. Do not have OCD about your goals. Like, well, I didn't do it on January 1st. So no, you can do a vision board at any time of year. You can set goals at any time of year. Do not be OCD about this. You know that I'm a big defender of using your birthday, New Year's, whenever, as a time to reset, but don't take that further than you need to. Okay, so next, Caitlin's going to play. You will hear Lindsay talking about the specific things that she is looking to bring into her life. I love these examples. It's so smart. And so let's listen to the specific things that Lindsay would like to have in her life. And that is what I'm going to jump off of and key off of here. Go ahead and play it.
We realized that it's a lot easier for us to connect together when the kids are at school versus like trying to in the evening or like on the weekend when the kids are home. So even thinking through and mapping out like which blocks of time that we're gonna have margin to just hang out and kick it. So thinking through a lot.
So you can see, if you pause the video on what she was just saying, she actually posted a screenshot of her list of the things that she'd like to bring into life in 2024. This is a great list. I love it. And I want to read it because those of you with kids who are juggling work and business and all that might like this. One is 2 blocked off periods a week during the day to just hang out with her husband. 1 big fun family outing a month. Each kid gets 1 date per month. 1 time a month date night, 2 times a month have friends over for dinner, 1 content thing together. Oh, I see. Like with maybe her family or her husband, film content. Do a small group January through May, every other Saturday, and then a monthly budget awareness meeting. So solid. These are incredible goals. And I say that because you might want to build off of it. So before I key off of this, I also want to say this. She did not ask me to say this. She has no idea I'm talking about her. This will be a surprise. Probably the most life-changing thing you could do this year is get a consultation with her group, Created Colorful. She is Created Colorful on Instagram, or you can just Google her website. Caitlin, could you look up the Created Colorful website? Mm-hmm. It might be just that.com, but we can look it up. Probably, I mean, if I were to list the most life-changing things I've done in the past 5 years, honestly, getting a consultation with them is up there. I would sound shallow if I said it's number 1, so I won't. But I mean, listen, take my word for it. It's a little bit of a time investment because you need to take pictures with yourself in front of a bunch of colors. That I can't think of a better bang for the buck in terms of the time and money you will get back in your life. Do you have the website,
Yep,
Caitlin?
it's createdcolorful.com.
Okay, createdcolorful.com. Again, I'm not getting a commission for saying this. She didn't ask me to say this. Especially if you hate shopping. I hate shopping. Now, just at a glance, I can be like, oh, you know what? Those aren't my colors. I don't even need to go into that store because they're doing like a muted neutral tones palette right now. That's not my palette. So I don't even have to walk in that store. Or something that I think, I don't know, might look cute. If it's not nailing my color palette, I don't even look at it. That's why today I'm wearing red. I got that from Lindsay. So that's an aside. If you have ever taken my advice on anything I have ever said, this goes for men too, man or woman. If you have ever taken my advice on any recommendation I've ever made, get a Created Colorful consultation. Just do it. And except it's a little bit of a time commitment. It will take you a few hours to get all the pictures done, and they might want a second round. Commit to breaking through that block and just do it, because the return that you will get on that investment of time and money cannot be overstated. Createdcolorful.com, and follow her on Instagram, Created Colorful. Okay, so anyway, but this is not about exactly her Created Colorful business. So she has these great goals that you might want to build off of. Here is what I would add to her goal setting. Here's what I would say to Lindsay, who, by the way, makes way more money than I do. So, like, maybe you should just, like, stop this podcast and go ask Lindsay for advice, because, you know, when you're taking advice from someone, you always need to look at their results. Okay. I'm in a crazy industry. All right. So take this with a grain of salt, because she is a wildly successful person. But I will say I'm like 10 years older than she is. So I have that sage advice that you can only get from 10 additional years of failing. Like I've been around this block of New Year's planning. Probably, I forget her exact age, but probably about 10 more times than she has. So here's what I would, add to. So let's take the goal of, like, each kid gets one date per month. Start with this. So write all this down. It's so good. I would love for my life to look like this in 2024. Okay. Do it. Write all that down. Now, what you want to do for each one of those goals is just write out, what feeling would that bring you if you accomplish this? So let's say you have a similar goal. You say, oh, I'd love to just take each kid individually out for some special time once a month. All right. How would you feel if you actually did that? Write that down and write it. You know, all these gurus say write it in the present tense. And I do think that it is kind of helpful. So write in the present tense like it's already happened. I feel so good about the time I spend with my kids. I feel like they are getting quality time on a regular basis that makes me feel like they're getting filled up with my love, and we're really connected, and things are just going great in the kid department. That's how you would feel if you actually kept up with that habit. And then for each one, do that. So the monthly budget meeting, how would you feel if you actually got that done? So you would write, I feel really on top of my finances. I feel like I know what's going out and what's coming in, and I feel comfortable that I am spending the right amount of money for my income. So write all those down for each routine that you were hoping you would do: the monthly budget meeting, the date night with kids, whatever, the date night with your spouse. Write how you would feel if you perfectly kept up with that. Make that your overarching vision, the feeling one, not the detailed one. And again, we touched on this in a couple episodes ago. It's called Goals with a Z. I think that's when I was talking about it. Maybe I think it was episode 187, I'm pretty sure. And I'm constantly talking about it on the Village Hustle Patreon. This is exactly what I talk about there. But so make that bullet pointed list of how you would feel if you accomplish these habits. Make that what you write down in your journal, your guiding vision for 2024. And here is why the word scrappy keeps coming into play. Because the only way to keep up with very specific routines is to be an ice bath bro. What I mean by I define ice bath bros by, and they're not all this way, but they actually are. I define ice bath bro as somebody who puts their routines above their community. They put routines above love and connection and all the messiness and unpredictability that comes with that. Notice that most of the ice bath bros, they're not raising their own children. If you read the acknowledgments of their book where they're telling you how to have your perfect atomic habits, they're always like, for Susan, who takes our kids to all their events, who's up with our kids at night when they're sick. I'm like, can Susan just write a book? I'm living Susan's life. Like, I can't do my perfect 5 a.m. meditation and ice bath session because I was up with a kid who was sick all night. When you're living a life that is based on love and community, you can't keep up with habits perfectly. You can't keep up with a routine perfectly. And that's the difference between us Village Hustle people and the ice bath bros, is we recognize that all of our best laid atomic habits might not perfectly come to fruition because life can get crazy. Like let's say you're trying to go out and take your kids on regular trips or whatever. Let's say someone has an injury, someone has a terrible injury in the family. When you live a village life of love and community and there are lots of people around and you're sharing your life together, the more people who are around, the more likely something will go awry. That is simple statistics. That is just statistics. The more people in your life, the more likely that you'll have difficult things happen. And so your routines might get messed up. You're on your perfect morning journaling plan or whatever, and then someone in your family has this chronic illness come up and you can't figure out what's going on, and you're going to all these doctor's appointments, and you're up with them at 2:00 in the morning because they're sick and you can't figure out what's going. Yeah, you're not doing your 5 a.m. journaling if that is happening. So if you convinced yourself that the only way to achieve this thing you want in life is to follow this habit, you will feel a feeling of despair. An example from my life is, for a while when my kids were little, I set a goal where I said 5 nights a week I will sit down and I will read one book with the kids. So that was the goal. And in my mind, the feeling I was going for, I didn't write this down because I didn't know about this. Because again, I hadn't been around this block. I was still in my 30s when I didn't know how this stuff works. So, gosh, I was naive. So I was like 5 nights a week I will read with my kids. The feeling that I was going for, that I didn't articulate or write down because I didn't understand how this works, was I want to feel connected with my kids, and I want my kids to see me engaging with them in a meaningful way on their level, in a way that we're having fun bonding moments that are to their taste. So, but again, I didn't write any of that down, and because we're all influenced by Atomic Habits culture. So I said, okay, five nights a week. This is how it's going to get done. Second night that I tried this, at this time I had 4 kids under age 5, and one of the toddlers. So first of all, we are wild folk in my family. I have not done an Ancestry.com test, but based on my family history is actually very easy to trace on Ancestry. You can look, click on the find a grave or whatever. I mean, it's all very clear family history there. And I've traced it way back. And it explained so much about the culture of my family when I realized that the areas of Europe that we are descended from are the ones that were entirely settled by Vikings. I realized this one day when my daughters were jumping on the couch and beating each other with their baby dolls. it made a lot of things make sense. The Vikings had a girl's name that is Grunhilda, which means war battle, war battle. And they would name their little girls that. And my crazy number 5, who I've talked about many times, Pammy, she was just on this podcast the other day. I was like, if I had known what kind of temperament she would have, I would have named her Grunhilda, that war battle, like absolutely. So anyway, when you have children who have, from what I can tell, 90% Viking DNA, reading books doesn't go like you would want it to go. They started fighting over the book. And they're like, give me the book. And I'm trying to get them all on my lap for that like physical touch, quality time. And the baby is sitting there. I'm like trying to manage the baby. And they're fighting over the book. And I'm in the red zone. I'm in the red zone. I'm not cut out for this. I'm an only child. I don't know anything about little kids. I'm struggling. The 2 oldest were fighting over this book. One of them had an iron grip on it. The other was like pulling really hard. The one who was originally gripping it decided to let go. Whoosh, the book flies back. The corner of the book hits me right in the eyeball at about 30 miles an hour. Thus ended our family reading time. So I was in a place of despair because I had it in my head that this is the only way. I was thinking habits first rather than goal first. I was putting the cart before the horse. And most of us do this when we set goals. I was thinking habits first, not goal first. And it devastated me. I was very upset. I was like, I'm failing. I can't read with these kids. But then when I realized, I kind of stumbled into that concept of stating the feeling. What kind of feeling do you want? And putting that first. And when I did that, I realized, okay, that the goal is to do something that is bonding for the kids in the evening that's on their level. And I realized that there are other ways to tell stories. And it's this same part of my brain that makes me bad at managing little kid stuff that makes me creative. We've talked on other episodes about how whatever negative trait you have, there is a positive flip side. You just have to look for it. So in this case, I realized the positive flip side of me being so bad at dealing with little kids is that I'm pretty creative. I'm good at coming up with spontaneous things and stories and whatever. And so I realized that I could just make up stories. I didn't have to depend on books. This was a massive life-changing thing when I realized, the feeling I'm going for is story time, so to speak, with the kids, telling stories, engaging with them in the evening on that level. And I realized I actually don't need books. Of course, there's a value for I'll read books to the kids sometimes, but that doesn't have to be exactly what I do. So I shifted gears, I iterated, and I started making up stories and telling stories. And this is one of our absolute top family memories. My kids love these memories of story time because I would let them choose the characters. Each kid got to choose a character, which they loved. And then I would make up a story based on it because that's how my crazy brain works. That's how I can't organize anything. I can't do housework. But, you give me 4 names and a setting, I could literally talk for 2 hours with just like laying out a story. I mean, I could talk almost endlessly. That is zero problem for me. And that is the flip side of me being utterly unable to function in the real world. And we all have that for every negative quality. So this ended up being one of my favorite memories with my kids was me making up these stories where they would choose the characters and I would just spontaneously come up with a whole story. They loved it. That rapt attention. And then we could also turn out all the lights, which got them a little bit more calmed down. I have some audio recordings of me telling the stories and their little voices chiming in with, they would try to micromanage. They'd be like, no, she's not a princess. She's a dog trainer. And I'd be like, oh, but it's my story. So, and then, you know, and then again, my Viking children would be, they'd start fighting over the story. And I'm not saying that it was like perfectly, it always went off perfectly, but it ended up being a really beautiful thing. And that is how I stumbled into this concept of don't get hung up on the specific habits that you would like to bring into your life. What you need to focus on is the feeling, how would it feel to have this thing done? And then keep iterating, keep trying new things and being willing to fail until you achieve that feeling. So that's what I love Lindsay from Created Colorful, who you have to sign up for her or do a Created Colorful consultation. I love everything that she says here, like date night once a week and all that. I would just add, make sure you know the overarching feeling you're going for. Like, I'm really connected with my spouse. We get time alone, because what if, a lot of people had date night goals when COVID hit and no more date night, and they had to pivot and iterate. But if you had it in your head that it's only through date nights that you're going to achieve quality time with your spouse, that could end up feeling really discouraging. That could end up being a big hit. So start with, I think Lindsay, again, look her up on Instagram. Start with the kind of things that she's talking about, that it would be great to once a week do this, twice a month do that, but make sure you have a guiding written list of what it would feel like if those things happen, so that you can go back to that feeling. And if your specific habits are not working, like they have so often not in my life, then you can iterate without feeling like you're a failure. Because you're like, okay, this specific habit or routine, it ends up not being practical right now. So I'll just go back to that, the feeling I was going for, being on top of my finances, having a great relationship with the kids, and I'll just find a new way to get there. And that is it for this episode of the Jen Fulwiler Show. Patreon.com/thisisjen is where you find our fine premium content. I am Jennifer Fulwiler on Instagram. You probably can't spell it, but if you just do Jennifer and then FUL, if you can get that far, you should be able to find it. And I will be back with you next week here on the Jen Fulwiler Show.